What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports NFL Podcast. I'm Brinson. I'm your host. Round one of the 2024 NFL Draft is in the books, and we're going to break it down with some winners and losers style action. Myself, John Breech, Tyler Sullivan. Johnny, the Bengals get a offensive lineman. Sully, Drake May is the new Tom Brady. Got a lot of talked about. Weirdly insane, but not as insane as it was supposed to be first round. How would you grade the give the first round of the draft a grade overall?
I'd still give it like a B plus. I mean, there was plenty of intrigue. I mean, we'll get to it, but like the free fall of a couple of one quarterback specifically in JJ McCarthy, and then you have Michael Penix Jr. being a top 10 pick going ahead of him, like that was crazy. The fact that we're getting all the subplots with Kirk Cousins beyond that is bananas. And we have a couple of teams here that have really solidified themselves. I mean, Roma Dunze, I know a lot of people mock.
Well, let's not.
Yeah, we're just giving grades out here for the overall draft. My God, Sully,
I'm excited.
Sully's about to break down the entire draft.
I'm ready to go.
Sully was about to cover literally 1/3 of the NFL draft.
Every single pick.
And you haven't even asked me about Drake May.
Did you actually give it a grade?
I said B+.
23 B plus. 23 offensive players selected in the first round. Breech, what grade do you give the first round of the 2024 NFL draft?
I will give it a B, and I'm going to give it that grade because I think the Falcons saved it. If the Falcons would have just taken a defensive player and everything just went down, it's probably a C plus to me. But the fact that that is just the most, I don't want to say unpredictable pick ever because Jonathan Jones predicted it. But my God, I don't even know what happened to the rest of the draft because I stopped paying attention after that because I was just beside myself. I could not believe what happened. So I'll go B plus.
Shout out to go ahead. I was going to say shout out to Jonathan Jones, our CBS Sports NFL insider, who correctly predicted in his only mock draft. And I think I made fun of him for it on here like several times. I absolutely dragged him for it on here. Like, sure, JJ, that's what they're going to do. He did one mock draft. He's not really he's a CBS Sports insider. So he has obviously he talks to plenty of teams. But like JJ's not I don't think JJ would consider himself like a huge draft guy. And to suggest that the Falcons would sign Kirk Cousins this huge deal and they go out and draft Michael Penix 8th overall is absolutely wild. I think it does. And you mentioned like J.J. McCarthy falling, because I think the best way to get into this draft is with the quarterbacks. 6 taken in the first 12 picks. The record is 6 in the first round, and we got done with them by 12 picks in. Obviously, we didn't get any more, so they didn't break the record. But I'm sitting here doing my winners and losers story, and I think I'm going to do all quarterbacks as winners. And Michael Penix said one of them, Kirk Cousins ain't one of them. But I'll tell you, I think we don't need to spend much time on Caleb Williams because he was the first quarterback taken. No surprise. I think because they come back and get Roma Dunze, he's a winner. But I think the Penix, as Breech points out, Michael Penix being drafted by the Falcons is by far and away the biggest story of the entire night because it was entirely chalk. So we got Caleb 1, and I'm not trying to do what Sully was trying to do. We get Caleb 1, Jaden 2, Drake May 3. Those were the big – we saw Tom Pelissero tweet out like an hour before the draft or 30 minutes before the draft. Drake's going to be the 3rd pick. Chalk, chalk, chalk. Marvin Harrison 4, chalk. Joe Alt 5, chalk. Malik Neighbor 6, chalk. J.C. Latham, we knew the Titans were going to take an offensive lineman, chalk. And then wham, bam, out of left field off the top rope, the Falcons come flying in and draft Michael Penix is the 4th quarterback off the board. Breech, you touched on it. Who's the winner? Who's the loser here? It has to be Kirk Cousins is a loser, right?
Kirk Cousins is a huge loser in this situation. We had his agent literally reaching out to every single person, even gave a statement to a couple of guys over at NFL Media. He said, yes, it was a big surprise. We had no idea this was coming. The truth is the whole league had no idea this was coming. We got no heads up
Jonathan Jones. Jonathan Jones.
Read Jonathan Jones' mock draft. And to finish that statement real quick, Kirk got a call from the Falcons when they were on the clock. That was the first we heard. It never came up in any conversation, end quote. And the reason that makes Cousins the loser, the fact that it never came up in any conversation, that makes McCartney, the agent, it makes it sound like, hey, if you would have maybe brought this up in March, maybe we don't sign with you guys because we would have liked to have known if you were not. We're coming here to win the division title, maybe get to the playoffs, maybe win a Super Bowl. We're thinking you're to use that 8th overall pick to help build the roster this year. Instead, you draft a quarterback, and now either Kirk isn't going to play or Penix is going to play because both of them are not going to be on the field. And so I think if you're Cousins, you have to be livid. And to me, this turns into one of two situations. It either turns into an Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love situation, but Kirk Cousins isn't as talented as Aaron Rodgers. So if Kirk is just irate and beside himself the whole year, who knows what he's going to look like? You don't know where his mind is going to be because not only is he recovering from this Achilles now, but now he's got this in the back of his head of this team hates me. He has no relationship with the Falcons. They're already they're burning bridges already. And then the optimal option would be that this turns into Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes, where Penix sits for a year, takes over quarterback, fun transition.
So Michael Penix is like 25.
Well, right. And so
he's already so old.
Seems unlikely, but my God, the Falcons have even if Penix ends up being awesome, which is completely possible, at least for 2024, they have created quite the dramatic and ugly situation for themselves.
Sully, I think you can make a pretty, I have to go back and look at how Jordan Love transferred to, but kind of an Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love style situation where, except you haven't had the guy on your roster for 15 years.
Right. To me, I think it's two things. And I think both of it can be true. It's bad business to do it in the way that you did, not telling Kirk Cousins and kind of catching him blindsided after decreeing him with the money and the contract to be the new franchise guy. But I also don't fault the Atlanta Falcons for doing it in the sense of bringing in a quarterback like Michael Penix, who we all like. Yes, we think that that's relatively high, taking him that high.
Brady Quinn and Danny Cannell and Prisco was really high on Penix too, I believe. Right. Brady said on the podcast, his tape was the best tape of anybody in this class last year.
And so now, in what was one of the rubs? Oh, he had Rome Odunze and a ton of stud wide receivers. Well, now he goes to Atlanta with all first-round pass catchers at his disposal. So
injuries was another rub.
He had 4 season-ending injuries. Yeah. His age and injuries were the big problem.
Of course. But where is he going now? He's going to Atlanta, and this is what I'm getting at. You don't necessarily know what you're going to get with Kirk Cousins. He is going to
I agree with this take.
He's going to be 36 coming off an Achilles injury. We all just assume he's going to be fine, but we don't know that. And it's not like he's been, like Aaron Rodgers, a former MVP. He's been a good quarterback, but it's not necessarily this all-time great that we're talking about here. We don't know what it's going to look like. So if you're this front office for Atlanta, you better do your due diligence on this quarterback class. And if you like somebody like Michael Penix Jr. enough, make him a top 10 pick. What's the worst thing that happens? Oh, no, you have 2 good quarterbacks? That's a great situation to be in if you're them.
Yeah, so I actually think, and I was going to think about writing some about this during the draft, and I was like, if I start writing this, I'm never going to get anything done with these winners and losers post. I think you made the case that, okay, to your point, let's say that the Falcons roster is built to win now. You go out and you sign Kirk Cousins and you sign Darnell Mooney. You have a defense that certainly needs some help, but we believe in Raheem Morris as a guy who can coach up a defense and get the most out of them, right? That defense can be top half of the league if everything clicks right pretty easily. Would you like to get a pass rusher there instead and really push for this year? Yes. But let's say you draft a pass rusher at 8. Dallas Turner, Latu, I don't know, you get Byron Murphy, an interior guy to replace Grady Jarrett, which we all thought they would do. Throw a quarterback in there. Do whatever you want. Put a defensive player on there. And Cousins isn't healthy coming off the torn Achilles, isn't ready to play to start the season, gets hurt early in the season, lacks explosiveness throwing the ball down the field because his Achilles, he's coming off a repaired Achilles, or gets hurt again, anything. This season that you've sort of gone all in on is suddenly last year but with a worse quarterback situation. And now you have Michael Penix, who is a veteran rookie because of his age. I think he's 25. He played 5 years. He has 61 starts or something like that. He and Bo Nix attempted 1,600 passes, or maybe it was Penix, whatever it is. Like, these guys have played for so long because of COVID, because of the transfer portal, that they are older, established guys. So, like, you kind of have a safety net if the Cousins things go sideways in the first year. And if Cousins goes sideways in the first year and Penix looks awesome, you can get out of the Cousins deal after 2 years. It's sort of like a really rich version of Matt Flynn and Russell Wilson in Seattle.
I think that makes all the sense. Again, we don't know what Kirk Cousins is going to look like. And like you're saying, you have a quarterback now on a rookie deal. You can kind of take that risk. I know it's a lot of money that you gave to Kirk Cousins, but let's just play this thing out. Let's see what this guy looks like. And what's the worst case scenario? That Kirk Cousins is awesome and you have this great first round rookie quarterback over the next couple of years to develop behind him. And then you make a decision on a later date. That's not a bad problem to be in. If you're the Atlanta Falcons over the last few years, you have had horrible quarterback play that's deterred you from contending outside of your first round talent at the pass catching positions. You never want to be in that spot again. So what do? You double down at the position. I don't hate it.
Well, I think that Kirk Cousins' biggest problem, though, is that the Falcons didn't give him a heads up that this came out of nowhere, that he signed this huge contract, assuming he was going to be the undisputed starter. And now you have the 8th overall pick coming in. I mean, what if you get the training camp and they're equals, and you start thinking, well, maybe do we need to start Michael Penix? Or are you automatically thinking, you know what? He's definitely be on the bench the first year. He'll learn behind Kirk. Or as you guys just said, if Cousins is struggling or doesn't look great coming off that torn Achilles, then you do have Penix there as your safety net. But the flip side is, what if the Falcons go 12-5 next year with Cousins as their starter and he just keeps playing well? Do you get to a point where you just have to tear off the Band-Aid and say, bye, Kirk, Michael Penix is our starter now? Or do you just ride the Kirk Cousins train until it crashes? If Kirk Cousins plays well enough to be the starter for all 4 years of his contract. I mean, I cannot imagine any situation where he is the Falcons starter for all 4 years.
It was a great point. I was going to tell Harry to upload this photo that I sent in Slack if he can. But if you can work on that, it's Terry Fontenot. Did you see that clip of Terry Fontenot talking to Arthur Blank? And he's like, no. And Arthur Blank's like, I've got like 7 of my closest friends here, because it looks like all old people. Like all old men in the Falcons draft room. And he's like, you're making me look like an a-hole, Terry. he's like, I was under the clearly. And I think, look, again, to Breech's point, I think the case is made like, okay, if Michael Penix doesn't play a snap for 4 years because Kirk Cousins is good enough, isn't that in theory sort of the Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers thing? Except Michael Penix will be 30 by the time that Kirk Cousins' contract is actually up, I believe, maybe 28, whatever it is. Yeah, this is like, and there's a video of this, and Terry Fontenot, look at who are these old, there's so many, it's like, what a wild demographic in this Falcons war room. Anyway, the point being is that, like, the Packers didn't use the 8th overall pick on Jordan Love. They did trade up to get him, but they knew what they had in Aaron Rodgers. And I couldn't help but feel this like pang of sort of, if you're Kirk Cousins and the Vikings got JJ McCarthy, and we'll get to that, but it's like, man, if you could turn back time, would Kirk probably just be like, all right, let's, like, if Kirk Cousins knew the Falcons were going to draft a quarterback 8th overall, I think he probably re-signs with Minnesota.
Well, the money's different, obviously, because Kirk Cousins got it back, but it's very similar to what happened in Pittsburgh with Russell Wilson. He signs with the Steelers, and all of a sudden they trade for Justin Fields. I don't know if he signs with Pittsburgh if he knows that Justin Fields is coming to town. So it's similar, and I agree with you. I don't think that if you had told him the full plan, if you said, hey, Kirk Cousins, we're going to give you all this money, but we're also going to draft a guy number 8 overall, and it's kind of going to be a big deal, over training camp and throughout your entire tenure here, because we're going to be looking at this guy wondering if he's the next franchise. I don't know if he signs. He probably stays with Minnesota, right? Or he explores other situations. But again, I don't agree with how the Falcons handled it. But in terms of acquiring another quarterback possibly be insurance for a 36-year-old coming off an Achilles. That's a smart move.
Well, I would say the one difference with the Steelers Wilson situation, though, is that Russell Wilson has not played well enough over the past 2 years to not expect the Steelers to bring in some sort of competition. You can't just walk in after the way you played for 2 years expecting to be the starter. Whereas Kirk Cousins was the premier free agent quarterback this year. He expected that wherever he signed, he is the starting quarterback. And that Falcons are not going to use a first-round pick on a quarterback.
The Falcons are being investigated for tampering because they were so desperate to get Kirk Cousins, and then they turn around and they're like, ha-ha!
The NFL tomorrow is going to be like, we rescind and take back your 8th overall pick, so Penix is back in the draft.
All right, let's take a quick break. I really do think that was by far the biggest story of this draft. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll discuss our favorite winners from round 1 of the 2024 NFL Draft next.
At CBS Sports Galazzo Network, we're bringing you the game.
The madness of Messi arrives!
Breaking down the game.
This is unlike anything else in the world.
And changing the game.
Get it all for nil.
That means free.
Whoa.
And all day long!
24/7.
Okay, so the biggest winners for the first round of the draft. I'm looking at what you guys put into the Google Doc, and I think it's hilarious. You know, we do it right now. We prep a little bit around these parts. Harry does a great job getting us ready for the shows. I think it's funny that when we were talking about our bold predictions for before the draft, who would be the winners, who would be the losers, we listed the Vikings, Bears, and Cardinals because all three of them had 2 first-round picks. And while Sully has, I had the Vikings before, right? I think I had the Vikings last. Sully grabbed the Vikings. But look, you only have 32 picks. If you have 2 of them, you're more likely to be a winner than you are to be a loser. And the Vikings, the Bears, and the Cardinals, I think, are the 3 big winners because they all made or maybe you can make Kyler Murray's a winner. But to the point, Sully, the Vikings, not only did they get a quarterback, they didn't have to give up the other first-round pick, and they didn't have to give up a future pick, right? I mean, they have to be a winner.
Yeah, I mean, if you told a Minnesota Vikings fan that you would come out of this draft with J.J. McCarthy, still have your 2025 first-round pick intact, and somehow also have Dallas Turner, they'd be like, okay, sure, crazy man from the future. That makes all the sense in the world. Like, it's you know, we can talk about why McCarthy fell and you know, whatever that reason was.
And to be clear, like, he only fell to 10. Which,
he's a top 10
if you'd said before the 2023 season and college football season, like, J.J. McCarthy will go 10th overall, people would be like, yeah, pal, right.
Right. But, and again, we were talking about him possibly being 4-5, this crazy trade up. It's really went chalk at the beginning of the draft, as you said, Brinson. But to me, the fact that he was able to go down a little bit. And we also identified 10 as a possible spot where these teams could pivot to try to trade up for a quarterback. I thought it would be for Michael Penix, but J.J. McCarthy ended up falling there. Good on the Vikings to just jump up that one spot with the Jets so they didn't get leapfrogged by the Broncos, Raiders, or whoever else that possibly could move up there. You secure your franchise quarterback. You somehow end up with a dude that was in the running to be the first defensive player off the board in Dallas Turner, helps you replace Danielle Hunter. You know, he's got comparisons to like Josh Allen in Jacksonville. To me, I don't know how you come away with this not feeling really good if you're the Minnesota Vikings.
I would say, I know our stat guy, our research guy, Doug Clausen, threw out, and I'm not sure if you saw this, Sully, just how much the Vikings had to give up to make all of this happen. When you look at acquiring the 23rd pick, when you look at trading up from 11 to 10, that they gave up the equivalent of another first-round pick to get these 2 first-round picks.
Did they really?
Yeah. The equivalent of a mid-first round.
But in terms of like
pick.
grade points, right? Not obviously not actually a first-round
right.
pick.
But I mean, I agree with you because you got your quarterback and you got one of the better defenders in the draft who people were talking about as a potential top 10 pick before the draft. So I think if you're the Vikings, you're thrilled no matter what the technical numbers say about, you know, how much you gave up to get these 2 guys.
Right. I mean, go to last year real quickly. I mean, we were kind of getting after the Houston Texans for trading back up to number 3 to get Will Anderson Jr. We're like, wait a minute, they gave up, what was it, the Cleveland pick or whatever they, or no, their own pick.
They gave up their own pick.
They gave up their own pick.
If they weren't a good team this year, we would still be giving them a little crap because the Cardinals, you're thinking the Cardinals are going to have 2 top 10 picks.
Yeah, exactly.
And the Texans would nail the CJ Stroud thing, won the division. I mean, that's, like they go up 23. It's a whole different ballgame. If JJ McCarthy and Sam Darnold, we'll see, like they didn't give up their 2025 pick. That's the key. You know what I mean?
100%.
Like you gave up the equivalent of a first round pick, but you didn't give up the pick.
Right, because we don't know if Minnesota is going to be particularly good next year either. Like they have their quarterback, they have their first round pass rusher, but you're also in a division with Green Bay, who was in the playoffs, Detroit, who was making moves, and they just drafted, Chicago did, their franchise quarterback in Caleb Williams. You could finish last in that division.
But making moves, I mean, they were in the NFC Championship game. Like, yeah. I mean, to your point too, like the Texans last year, coming into 2023. The Texans' win total was like 5.5, and the Panthers' win total got up as high as 8. And no one would have guessed that the Texans would win way more games. The Texans won a playoff game. The Panthers won 2 games, right? And so that to me is like if you don't not giving them a future first, getting a quarterback. I don't know if JJ McCarthy's gonna be good. I think JJ McCarthy's a winner in this whole thing because he landed with the Vikings and Kevin O'Connell, who almost made the playoffs with 5 quarterbacks, got the most out of a bunch of guys who were like coming in at the last minute. Josh Dobbs flies into the trade deadline. Jaron Hall, the rookie, like the ability. I think that's a good coaching staff. And then you add Dallas Turner to that Brian Flores defense. You feel like Minnesota is at least in a much better spot than they were 48 hours ago, right? Even if they did give up the equivalent. And by the way, Minnesota next year. 1 first in the first round pick in 2025, and then 2 fifth-round picks. So they have nothing next year. That's an issue. That's an issue for down the road. But
they're all in on 2024, Brinson. They're the Cowboys. They're all in.
But it's a concern for a guy, Kwesi Adolfo-Menso. Again, I'm petrified I'm going to butcher his name. But like that's an issue for a guy who like constantly preaches how much he values draft picks. And to do that, we mentioned the Panthers and giving up that first round pick. Breach the Bears. I think again, like however you want to hash it out. You want to say the Bears are winners. I would almost say you can say Caleb Williams is a winner because he's landing like. I mean, I thought it was kind of a preposterous statement when somebody threw it out, but the more you think about it, the more it makes sense. It might be the best landing spot in the history of pro football or the history of the modern NFL for a rookie quarterback taken in the top 5 picks with this 2024 Bears team.
Yeah, I mean, you look at how the draft works. Usually the crappy teams are at the top making picks in the top 5, but the Bears had the foresight to make a trade with the horrible Panthers, who were so bad that they got the number 1 pick for the Bears. So it's not often you see a top 5 pick or a number 1 overall pick go to a team that went 7-10 and was very competitive in many of those losses and was only 2 games from making the postseason. So this is a stacked Bears roster. And you look at before this draft even started, Caleb Williams was going to have Keenan Allen to throw to, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, and now you throw Rome Odunze in there. Like, my God, that offense is so loaded that it's almost absurd to think about. And I think the Bears are winners, though. I mean, obviously, Caleb Williams playing the stacked offense helps, but this is a franchise that has been starving for a star quarterback. They have had nothing since Sid Luckman in 1945. I mean, that's before Prisco was born. This is way back that we're talking about that they had a great quarterback. And so they're the only franchise in the NFL that's never had a 4,000-yard passer. There's just all these quarterback things that you can throw in their face. And Caleb Williams finally seems like the guy who can kind of end this quarterback curse and be that franchise quarterback that the Bears just haven't had. And then you throw all these weapons out there. I think that, I mean, if Keenan Allen leaves after 1 season, you have Dunze to throw in there. The Bears look loaded for the future, which is something I never thought I would say.
Yeah, it gives Caleb Williams a running mate for the remainder or for however long into the foreseeable future that we can think of with the Bears. Obviously, Keenan Allen, he's good for right now, but like you're saying, we don't know if he's going to be there in the year. But overall, I do agree that they have really crafted this roster extremely well around Caleb Williams. It's the perks of having a consensus number 1 overall pick and having the number 1 overall pick. You can go into free agency and bring in guys like DeAndre Swift and all of those players that you feel like could match Caleb Williams' skill set perfectly. And you're talking, Breech, a little bit about, obviously the Bears have been so starved for a quarterback. And that's great. And so it's totally true. It also couldn't come at a better time. I just mentioned it. Like, this division is starting to get stacked. We're talking about JJ McCarthy and the Vikings being on the come up. If you're the Bears, you needed to have this generational quarterback come through, or else you're going to be looking at Jordan Love and Jared Goff and this entire division leave you in the dust.
Yep.
Sorry, I was texting. I agree. I think it's a great point.
I think the crazy thing, though, is that we saw how good Jordan Love got over toward the second half of the season. But remember, Packers fans were ready to bench Jordan Love. When you look at what he did in the first half of the season, Jared Goff is, he's done well in Detroit. But Caleb Williams could play well enough that in 2 years, we could be looking at him as the best quarterback in the NFC North. So, I mean, there's no reason the Bears can't be competing for a division title as soon as this year.
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't think the Bears win the division this year. I think the Lions, and if Jordan Love maintains the same, sort of trajectory he's on, that the Bears are at best the third best team, all of a sudden that division is really like. And look, if Caleb Williams is great, a whole different ballgame. The Bears have done a great job. The Bears have done a fantastic job building back up off of the problems that Ryan Pace had. I thought the stat was – I knew it, but it's crazy. The Bears have used 3 of their last 5 first-round picks on quarterbacks. Think about that. That is wild. I'll throw out Kyler Murray / the Arizona Cardinals as winners.
Ooh.
They had their quarterback. I mean, they do, right? They believe Kyler's their guy. And I think the same thing with the Page. I think the same thing. I think the idea that at 3, 4, and 5, the Patriots, the Cardinals, and the Chargers were open for business was pretty much wildly oversold. I think they were open for business. I don't think anybody wanted to pay the price that they want. They wanted a future first to get a minimum to get out of those spots. And nobody was really willing to spend that to get up. So ultimately, you had the Patriots say, we're just going to sit here and take Drake May. I mean, the fact that the Chargers didn't move off of 5 and took Joe Alt there when you could have gotten – and Joe Alt's a really good player, but you could have gotten other offensive linemen. Like if you – I mean, do you – I would have guessed that the Vikings – and by the way, apparently the Vikings and Patriots all tried to trade for Justin Herbert last week, which is kind of insane. Sure. Love a $100 million cap hit. We can do that right now. No problem. I think the fact that the Chargers sat there and took Joe Alt, who is a left tackle, and we don't know what they're going to do with Joe Alt and what they're going to do with Rashawn Slater. I trust Jim Harbaugh implicitly. I think I kept hammering home the point the Chargers are going to take a tackle. But, I think that there just wasn't enough juice in none of these teams wanted to move down to 10, 11, 12, 13 and so as a result, you had chalk hold up top. But I think the Cardinals come away with a defensive player when they add Darius Robinson out of Missouri at 27. And then they also get Marvin Harrison Jr., who they just view as their next Larry Fitzgerald, to go with Kyler Murray. And they had to get a wide receiver in this draft. And so, again, it's easy to pick the teams who had 2 picks, but I think Kyler Murray / the Cardinals are a winner here because they came away with this high-end, possible yellow jacket, gold jacket style player in Marvin Harrison Jr. With the 4th overall pick.
I agree. I mean, it's again, you kind of depleted that entire position group over the last couple of years. Obviously, getting rid of DeAndre Hopkins, losing Hollywood Brown in free agency, even trading like Rondale Moore. You needed somebody, you didn't just need a body. You needed somebody who could transform the offense and have a defensive coordinator completely used on a week-to-week basis to game plan against. So, no, I think that makes total sense to bring him in.
Yeah, if you don't draft him, if they would have traded back, you're looking at what? Greg Dortch, Michael Wilson. Like, yeah, your receivers are just.
I mean, you got Trey McBride too, so like you can make the case that the Cardinals, but like now you saw enough from Kyler Murray last year where you feel like, all right, this team's got a little juice to it.
Yeah. So yeah, smart pick. I agree.
All right. Let's take a break. When we come back, we will give out losers. We already said that Kirk Cousins is a big loser. We'll find 3 more losers in the first round of the 2024 NFL Draft next.
At CBS Sports Galazzo Network, we're bringing you the game.
Madness of Messi arrives!
Breaking down the game.
This is unlike anything else in the world.
And changing the game.
Get it all for nil.
That means free.
Wow.
And all day long!
24/7.
I think one of the hard things to deal with the NFL Draft is like it's hard to come away with losers after a single round of the NFL Draft. Like it's easy to say Kirk Cousins is a loser, or Aaron Rodgers was a loser when the Packers drafted Jordan Love. Those things are easy, right? As for like, because it's just hard to say, like it's like Byron Murphy, you're a loser. Like I think Byron Murphy's a great player. I think the Seahawks are sneaky winners. Byron Murphy, Devin Witherspoon, like this defense for Seattle could be real good soon. But Breech, you love calling people losers. Who do you have on your losers list?
All right, that is not true. I do like saying that people suck, like Brinson. Look at that. People need
have you not seen my new hat I got?
Is that your logo? Do you have a new personal
logo? It's my
logo?
Brinson brand, yeah.
Oh my God, Brinson. Wow. If you are listening audio version, you need to get on YouTube at the 31-minute, 20-second mark. The Brinson brand?
Actually, this is somebody's company. So I was hanging out with somebody that gave me this hat. I can't remember who it was. Whoever's company it was sent me a link to it.
I just
I like the idea of having a bee hat. I feel it feels right.
Well, I have a BS hat. Brinson sucks. All right. Well, anyway, so it is tough in the first round, but I am going to give my low grade award to the Las Vegas Raiders. Look, Brock Bowers is talented, awesome tight end. I just think that they could possibly be the worst landing spot for him. I understand what you can do with 2 tight end systems. You go out there, you run your 12 personnel. The Patriots love that stuff. Belichick's huge with it. We all remember Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski, but the Raiders don't have Tom Brady. They have Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. For an offense like that to work, you don't even know what you have at starting quarterback. And so I would have thought about maybe plugging some other holes before I use a top 35 pick on a tight end for the second straight year, which I believe is the first time since at least 1985 that a team has used 2 top 35 picks on a tight end in consecutive seasons. There's a reason it doesn't happen, because you have so many other holes on your roster. You don't need to draft a top tight end in the top 35 in consecutive seasons. So look, Brock Bowers might be awesome, but we know they got Michael Mayer last year. So to me, the move just didn't make a lot of sense when you look at the other needs they had, whether that was cornerback, offensive tackle. I mean, literally anything else, but they went tight end. So I thought that was a weird move.
I think they kind of got caught by surprise with Michael Penix going as high as he did. I think that they probably wanted to get into that quarterback race, thinking that maybe they could trade up to 10 with the Jets if Michael Penix was still there, or to leapfrog Denver and whoever else was, maybe Minnesota too. I think they kind of got tricked into a spot where they had to go, you know what, let's just take best player available on our board, even though it doesn't fill the biggest need.
But I will say to that, Sully, is that Penix got taken at 8th overall. They picked 13. So they had nearly an hour to recalibrate and get this figured out. And it's, man, it was just, and with 6 quarterbacks win the first 12 picks, that means you literally had the 7th best non-QB option. It was just a little surprising. But you know what? Maybe Bowers turns into the next Gronk, and then you can throw this in my face.
Yeah, it also feels a little almost, for me, I think that Jacoby Myers does really well over the middle, and that's where he's, was great in New England. I thought he was great with Vegas then last year. it almost feels like a hat on a hat now that you're going to use Brock Bowers. You're not going to use him as a boundary guy. I'm curious to see how this offense kind of shakes out with their skill positions now.
I'll say this about the Raiders too, because I think that this is a result of coaching situations where Bo Nix goes to the Broncos and with Sean Payton. We're like, well, I mean, we're still giving Sean Payton. Like Sean Payton, I mean, I think Sean Payton's one of the best offensive minds in the last 20 years. So, like, I'm not going to – if he likes Bo Nix, I'm going to blindly trust him. But having been burnt by Sean Payton a couple times in the last few years, post Drew Brees, I think it's reasonable to start, have a little skepticism creeping up, a la Belichick, post Brady. JJ McCarthy goes to the Vikings. Well, Kevin O'Connell did good work. Like, dude, 6 quarterbacks were in the top 12. They're not all going to work out. I mean, so I think the point being is I think the Raiders could almost be painted as, all right, because I think back to 2011, Ponder, Locker, Gabbard, they're ripping these quarterbacks off left and right. And Kaepernick and Dalton ended up being much better than those guys in the second round. But it's like, I think you could say the Broncos are kind of losers because I think the Broncos are my loser. Because you know what? You drafted Bo Nix. He's 24 years old. You just traded for Zach Wilson. He's 24 years old. And if Bo Nix is great, that's awesome. Pete Prisco called him Baby Breeze. I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, Bo Nix was great at Oregon. And just like Michael Penix, it's a hard evaluation to deal with because these guys have played a bunch at the college football level. They're also playing against much younger players. Their opponents are like 18, 19, 20. They're on the back end of the bell curve of COVID. They get this extra 3 years. So, but like typically speaking, remember when the Browns drafted Brandon Weeden? I mean, typically speaking, this does not work out that well for NFL teams. So I think the Broncos were in a position where they couldn't make a move up and were stuck taking Bo Nix. And I almost look at it like the Raiders are lucky to have been, I don't know, we're on the outside looking in. We'll take the best player available. We'll go with Brock Bowers. I'll say the Broncos and Bo Nix is a winner because he gets Sean Payton, but I'll say the Broncos are my loser. Man, if this doesn't work out in year one, Sean Payton will have some scrutiny on him.
Yeah, I didn't like that pick at all. I thought, again, it felt so obvious.
You're a loser.
No, you didn't. No. It felt so obvious though, right? Like it felt like, okay, well, the Broncos are just going to take Bo Nix. We all hate it, but we just know it's going to happen. Like it's remarkable. It's again maddening. I'll believe it when I see it. I agree with you, Brinson. Like the dude had like 61 starts in college, the most ever by a quarterback. I just am very skeptical about how that's going to work out in the NFL.
It feels like the Michael Penix at 8 thing got the Broncos completely off the hook for Bo Nix at 12. Who's your loser, Sully?
To me, it's the Buffalo Bills. For the sheer fact that they traded back with the Kansas City Chiefs to allow them to get their wide receiver, their speedster in Xavier Worthy. It makes no sense to me why they would allow that team to go up to that position to identify basically who people are comparing to Deshaun Jackson, who's going to be paired with Andy Reid. Like that is to me unconscionable for a team that you are directly competing with. It's not in your division, but you are going your main rival in the conference. You're going toe to toe with them. You are synonymous with Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes. I have no idea why you would allow that team in particular to trade up for a position of need. By the way, a position of need that you also have, Buffalo. I know that you've traded out. You can still get Ladd McConkey with the first pick in the second round. Like you could still fill that need. We don't know how that trade ultimately is going to pan out. But the fact that you let Kansas City get the receiver that they wanted, and now you're pairing him with Patrick Mahomes, the dude that ran the fastest 40 time in the history of the combine, I don't know how you do that.
Well, and I don't know if you remember this. Do you remember the last time the Chiefs and Bills traded in the first round?
I do.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It was when the Bills gave away the 10th pick to the Chiefs, and the Chiefs could come up and take Patrick Mahomes. And you wonder why this guy won't let you get through and win a Super Bowl. Because you don't think about it. Like, do you think Patrick Mahomes doesn't take that personally? The Bills are like, nah, we don't want that pick. And Patrick Mahomes, go ahead, Chiefs, take him. Yeah, it's worse than like the Lions and the Vikings swapping picks to me because you're like openly inviting the Chiefs offense to be better by letting this team that doesn't mess up in the draft, that has the greatest offensive mind probably in the history of football outside of maybe Bill Walsh and Andy Reid. And sure, come up. You probably won't figure out what you're doing.
If you're the Bills, why are you even picking up the phone if the Chiefs are calling you? I would, if the caller ID says Kansas City, I'm throwing my phone out the window, setting it on fire. I want nothing to do with the Chiefs. I'm not helping the Chiefs in any way. The Chiefs have been the one impediment for the Bills in the postseason. They can't get past the Chiefs. You don't want to make the Chiefs better. So, yeah, I agree with Sully that this was absolutely crazy trade for the Bills to make. If any other team makes this trade and says, you know what, we'll let Kansas City move up, you say, okay, that makes sense. But the Bills, no, that doesn't make sense for the Bills to make this move.
So, I mean, you know how long I would need to think about it? 13 seconds. That's all. I mean, no, I'm good. I'm good. All right, we're good. 1.3 seconds. Bonk. Bing bong.
One other move I want to mention real quick was the 49ers drafting a receiver. Does that mean we could see Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk moved sometime in the next 24 hours? Because, hey, when you have receivers who maybe aren't happy and now you're using your first round pick on one, it just seems like you're setting the stage for a possible move.
All right. I'm going to give the Panthers a C+. I like that they drafted Xavier to get in the first round after they told him, like, we're going to draft you. And then Dave Canales was like, no, I told 75 people that. But they traded up one spot with the Bills. Fifth-year option, okay, I guess. But, like, you gave up – stop giving up draft capital for unnecessary moves up. Let the Bills take whoever they want. I mean, maybe somebody's going to leapfrog him and say, you have the first pick, you have the leverage, you gave it all away. What grade – we'll get out of here on this. What grade will you guys give your teams? Because I'm not really a Panthers fan, but I'm kind of a Panthers fan. Sully, Drake May being taken at 3 overall. What's your grade?
I give him an A. It's what I wanted them to do. I didn't want them to trade down. I didn't want them to get cute. I wanted them to take the at-bat, take the swing with the talent. I think Drake May has the talent to be a Josh Allen, Justin Herbert type of guy. Let's see if he reaches it, but ultimately I like the pick.
Okay. Yeah, and look, I think Drake May is going to be Justin Herbert's a better comparison for Drake May than than Josh.
I'll take it. I will take either one.
I loved Belichick talking
about had to suffer. I actually didn't catch any Belichick stuff. Was it all just on YouTube? Is he good?
He was good, I thought. He did not like Drake May, I don't think.
I don't think he did either.
Which I love.
Do you think he didn't? Do you think he did like Drake May because Drake May might be great with New England, or do you think like
it could be anything? Bill Belichick is historically salty, so it could be just because he didn't like the way he ate his cereal. Who knows?
All right, Breech, your Bengals snaked Howie Roseman for a Georgia player and took Amarius Mims, a monster human being. Eight starts in his career, but just an absolutely huge human who could end up being a very, very good player for the Bengals. What'd you give your?
I will give it an A-. I think it's 6 starts in his career, and I think that's the big concern is that you don't. The experience isn't there. But look, if you're the Bengals, your number one priority has to be protecting Joe Burrow. That does this, and the other part is he doesn't have to go in and start right away because you have Orlando Brown, you have Trent Brown, you have the Browns. So you have 2 tackles in place. You hope that Amarius Mims can come in there and start from day one. But if he can't, he doesn't have to. And he can learn from these 2 guys during the 2024 season. I like that. I like that the Bengals got an offensive tackle, and I think he will be their right tackle for years to come.
All right, we're going to get out of here. But the good news is we are going to have on this YouTube channel, at NFL and CBS, the guys from with the first pick, the hardworking Ryan Wilson, senior. Actually, he's not senior yet, but he's just a draft analyst. And, of course, former Vikings GM Rick Spielman will be jumping off HQ. They're jumping onto YouTube. Make sure and check that out. If you're watching this, slide right over and get their analysis of the 2024 first round of the 2024 NFL draft. For Sully, for Breech, I'm Brinson. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys later.